Hi, my name is Roger, and I'm a huge lover of fantasy sports. I've always enjoyed playing my fantasy Premier League, and I've done a fantasy hockey draft with my friends for quite a few years. And I've never found that League has had a really good fantasy system. And I'm really excited to try out the new sleeper system this year because I think it's got a really cool twist in it that will make it a lot more balanced than some other fantasy sports, esports have been in the past. So I want to give you some tips on how to draft for your sleeper league. This is especially important this year because Riot is giving away free skins, and who doesn't love a free skin, right? Now, when we're talking about drafting for these leagues, the first thing you gotta keep in mind is how the points are structured. So if you're playing with your friends and or even online and someone's customizing these, I would definitely go check them out before the draft. But I'm going to bring up just the regular sleeper scoring stats, and we'll go through them really quick, and I'll give you a couple takeaways from the regular stats. So kills are worth 3 points, deaths are -1, and assists are 2. So that means like trades are actually not necessarily a bad thing, and games with a really high kill score are going to be good. So if teams are weaker teams in the standings, but they're in really bloody games, it could actually be a good thing for your fantasy points. The other thing is minions, they're worth a tenth of a point each. Sorry, hundredth of a point each. And yeah, so champs that are going to farm a lot are going to be, or players that are going to farm a lot are going to be worth high value as well. So if we look at the individual scores, a lane solo kill is worth 1, first blood is worth a bonus point, and then your minion difference at 15 minutes is worth 2 points as well. That's really not gonna make a huge difference. I think it'll buff the numbers up a little bit, but if there's a bloody game, it's gonna make a way bigger difference than just if someone got a solo kill or a first blood. So if we go to the team now, team points are really interesting in this league because it's not just for every Drake or every Baron or every turret. There's a bonus for first turret, there's a bonus for first Drake, Soul Drake, first Baron, and Elder Drake. So a lot of those mid-game objectives aren't actually going to count for anything, and there's also no bonus for victories. So you're not necessarily wanting to pick teams that are going to win, although that is very helpful because usually that means they have better stats. But teams that are active early in getting those first turrets, those first drakes, are going to be really good. So that like C9 comes to mind, where they have these really good first few levels, or at least last year, the C9 last year, like they were stomping games early, and so they were getting first drake. I think C9 gave up like 4 drakes in spring split last year, something like that. So those are going to be teams you want to go for, those early game teams. But also, if a game goes really late, there's a lot of points on the table for the Drake bonus and the Elder Drake as well. Like that, if a team gets Soul Drake and Elder Drake, that's 7 points for every single one of their players. That's like 2 kills. That's more than 2 kills worth. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, the thing I'm really excited about with Sleepers Fantasy Leagues is they have this pick ban system. So each week you get to pick a champion for each of your players and ban a champion for each of the opponent's players. And if your player plays that champion, then the points they get are multiplied. And if your opponent's player plays the champion that you banned, then their points are multiplied, but bad multiplier. So you can see here with the pick ban phase. Now the pick ban bonus is actually originally set to 2 and 0. I think that's a little over extreme because if your opponent bans the champion that your player plays, you'll just get 0 points for that player, and that could make a really huge swing. So I want to keep it on 1.25 and 0. That's what I'm going to do for my league. But yeah, I would definitely check those because the pick ban system could come in huge later on. So that gives us a basic understanding of how the draft works and how the points are going to work. You're going to get matched up against a different player each week, and whoever gets the most points with their 5 players will win that week and get a win. And then after 5 weeks, the top 4 players will go into a playoff bracket for the remaining couple of weeks. So I want to talk a little bit about players here. If we bring up this is my tier list. Now, I've kind of stolen this from a couple of other creators, but this is the basic tier list of players in the LCS. This gives you all of your choices here. Now, the biggest thing that we want to look for here is not just who are the best players in each role, because we kind of want to, we know the C9 players, the Team Liquid players, 100 Thieves, and TSM are kind of going to be a cut above the rest. But the question isn't how many of those players can you get. It's what's the differential between your best and worst player and the opponent's best and worst player. So to give you an example of what I mean, if we were to take Alfari as our first pick, let's say, in the draft. Let's say we're first pick, we take Alfari. And it snakes around, and by the end, we're left with an AD carry, right? We don't have a bot laner yet, and we're playing in a 10-man draft, so we are stuck with the lowest pick, which is Neo, right? So if we take Alfari plus Neo, that's going to be our total score. Let's pretend we're just playing with 2 players for right now. So our opponent takes Sven first pick. They took AD carry first pick, right? And then they now have their top laner is last, just to make this an easy scenario. So they've got Revenge last. Now, is the sum of Alfari and Neo going to be greater than the sum of Sven and Revenge? That's, I think, the big question here. So basically, you're looking at the difference if you were to do Alfari minus Revenge and Sven minus Neo. Which one is going to be higher, right? Like, you want to find out which role is going to be the most impactful throughout the draft. Now, personally, looking at those stats, I think that CS is going to play a big role here. 100 CS is 1 point. Most players are getting at least 200 CS a game, so that's like 2 points. But if they can crack that 300 mark, that's an extra point, right? And in a lot of these games, if they aren't bloody, then it could come down to CS. Now, if you think about the way that teams function, often early, you're diving top lane and you're diving bot lane. There's a lot of these very telegraphed plays. The map is split. You're maybe doing vertical jungling. Those are all things that could happen in the early game. And so it's really hard to understand who's going to have the most farm early. But I think for those later games, we have to understand that teams are going to give their bot laner and their mid laner farm for the most part, right? So I would prioritize bot lane and then mid lane. I think the difference in bot lane and mid lane is huge. We've got these imports with Sven and Perks coming in from EU, and these top kind of 3 and like 4 and a bit maybe for AD carry are quite a bit stronger than the bottom of the pack here. Now, I think that's also true for top lane, but I don't think it'll show up as much on the stats. I don't think Alfari will be as far ahead of Revenge as Sven is above Neo. That's my personal opinion. So I think I'm going to prioritize bot lane and mid lane first, and look for opportunities. Look at what your opponents are drafting, and opportunities to pick up players in these middle roles, maybe on your last pick, right? So if you see that like Perks, Jensen, and PoE are all gone, and no one's really picking up mid laners, right? Or maybe let's change it up. So top 5 are gone. Demonte's gone. So you're left with the bottom 5 picks here. But you know that you are last pick. So on the last round of the draft, you're going to get the first pick of the round, and the other 4 people who haven't picked yet haven't picked mid laners. So you get first pick of these. So you can hold your 4th pick and not pick Pobelter or Palafox, and then in your last round pick it. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but so really it's a question of differential between the best and worst players. I also would not count support out completely, but I don't think it's the most important role to prioritize. Supports are going to get a lot of assists, but in the current meta, there's not really a lot of enchanters. And enchanters are going to be where a huge number of assists come in. Like if they're playing Lux bot and you throw the Lux shield across your whole team, you're getting assists no matter what. But if a player's playing Alistar and they don't happen to be involved in the kill, like they're not getting an assist. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Is the current meta right now, I would say supports are probably undervalued, but it's really hard to know where that meta will go throughout the spring split. So here are a couple of oh yay, Barca won. That's awesome. Here's a couple of tips that I'm gonna leave you with here for your drafts. So tip number 1 is teams matter. Okay, so I would say pick your top 4 teams, your TL, C9, 100 Thieves, and TSM whenever you can. And I would value let's say support is the weakest position overall, just because they're not CSing and they're not necessarily getting kills the same way. So let's say support's the weakest position, just for posterity. I would value a TL support. Like I'd value Core JJ above Evil Genius's bottom lane or mid laner. Like maybe that's a bad example, but Golden Guardians, like I would value these guys here above almost most of the most of the bottom side of things, just because of those bonuses they're going to get from first turret and first Drake, and also like Elder Drake bonuses, stuff like that. Second tip. Second tip is prioritize AD carries and mid laners purely based on the CS. I think it's hard to know if you'll get bloody games, but I would say AD carry and mid lane are going to pump out high CS numbers regardless of what's happening. And so pick AD carry and mid laner. I think top laners can put out a lot of CS, but if a team does decide to put their top laner on weak side, then they're oftentimes going to get a significantly lower number of CS than if it was an AD carry that's on weak side. That's why I would say AD carries are higher value than top laners. Maybe the one difference here would be Alfari or Someday. They both can be pretty aggressive and can maybe get those solo kills against some of the weaker top laners in the league. But for the most part, I would say AD carries are going to be more reliable than top laners. And the last tip is big champ pools are better. Now, the reason I say this is because of the bonuses with picking and banning. Now, you get in my league, it's going to be a 1.25% multiplier for picking the right champ, and it's going to be a 0.5 multiplier for getting your champ banned. And so having champs or having players with big champ pools is better. You really don't want to get banned. If you get the bonus from you picking the right champ, that's awesome. It is just a bonus. But having the opponent ban your champion is going to hurt you a lot more than just getting the correct pick, if that makes sense. So I would say it's more important to get your bans right than it is to get your picks right when you are playing week to week. So with that, I would say players with big champ pools are better because they're going to be hard to nail down what they're playing. So you might not be able to figure it out for your pick, but your opponent also won't be able to guess it for their ban. So in this way, like Jizuke has quite a few champs that he plays, and sometimes he can be quite, I don't want to say unreliable, but like he just picks a new champ sometimes. Licorice would be another one where he's kind of brought some really interesting strats to the game. Perks is another one. He's played AD carry now. Those are just kind of three that come off the top of my head. The other thing to keep in mind would be teams that have kind of interesting strats. C9, is kind of always on the forefront of creating these new strats. I think they're really strong in best of fives because they can adapt so well. Now, we're obviously not talking best of fives in terms of the fantasy league, but if they're bringing a new strat to a game, you're probably not going to see it coming, and your opponent's not going to see it coming, so you're not going to get banned out. The other thing, like CLG, they got a bit more of an inting strat sometimes, but it is an interesting strat, and they have lots of cool level ones and stuff. So they could be players to pick up in your lower picks, your later on picks in the draft, just because they do have some interesting strategies and players who are willing to play some more unique picks. So overall, those are kind of my top three things to think about when you're drafting. So I'm going to go into a practice draft here just to show you kind of how it works. It'll all be computer players with the app here, but so it should go pretty fast. All right, so if we do a demo draft, all right. So on draft day, we're going to take turns picking players. Everyone has a shot at building a team. So Sven goes first pick, and Perks goes second pick. So I think that makes a lot of sense. The comms seem to know what they're doing. Now, like I said, C9, TL, 100 Thieves are going to be really good picks, right? I would say here I'm probably going to look for mid lane or Yeah, it is saying that Power of Evil has. Oh man, I haven't done the tutorial one here, so it's telling me I should draft Power of Evil. I think I'm going to take TSM or Jensen. Honestly, I think Jensen's really solid. Um, yeah, we're going to take Jensen. Well, okay, never mind. I have to take Power of Evil, so that's not a bad pick. Great. Are you going to let me actually pick my players now? All right. So, oh, there's only 4 of us in this practice draft. It looks like. So Blabber gets taken. I already have a mid, so I'm going to take a bot laner. Now, I definitely don't think Wild Turtle is first round, or like there's only 180 carry gone, right? So I would say probably FBI or Tactical. I would go definitely over Wild Turtle. He had really good points last year, but he was on a much better team. Unfortunately, I'm a huge CLG fan, so that's too bad. Yeah, I'm going to take Tactical in this spot, just because I think yeah. So I can see my team. I can see who I need to draft, and ooh, and it actually gives me some drafting strategies. That's interesting. So the draft order reverses on the 3rd round. That is something to keep in mind. It's going to snake forward, and then it's going to go back to the last pick for the 1st round. So here I see that. Well, it's kind of hard with only 4 people, but I see that there are all mid laners gone, but I've got my mid laner, so that's fine. I there's Licorice is gone for FlyQuest, so top laners are kind of a good. Where did he go? Okay, well, never mind then. Let's go back into it. Yeah. So we learned how to draft here. So other people are picking. He's going to pick Sven. What a surprise. Let me guess. Who was the second pick? Mid laner Perks. Yeah, Perks was the next pick. So I have to pick Power of Evil. But the thing I really want to show you in this is the picks here on this 3rd round. They swap back. So it's a snake draft. So I had 3rd pick, but now I'm going to have the 2nd pick in the 2nd round. In the 3rd round, I'm also going to have the 2nd pick. I would take Tactical here. So I can look for my top laner. I can look for jungle. It says support. I should draft one later because they're not as important. Now I see that the top laners are starting to go. Now, see, I would actually say that this pick from user 3, the computer here, is actually a really poor pick, taking Wild Turtle there. Not just because Wild Turtle plays for CLG, but Sven and Tactical are gone. And so if you look at the 80 carries who are left, your question is, are FBI and Johnson really that much different or even lost? I would say no. And so I think you could wait because everyone else already has their 80 carries. Well, there's only one person that you're missing there. So you can wait and hold on to your pick for bot lane because a lot of other players have taken bot laners, if that makes sense. So don't feel the pressure just because a lane is getting pinched. You kind of need to pay attention to where you are in the drafting phase. So obviously I already have a bot laner. In this case, I think I'd probably go top lane. Someday's still up. Someday's going to dominate. Even actually, I'd probably take Alfari in this case. I'm not a huge TL fan, but I'm sure they'll put up points. So that is the demo. I kind of want to do a mock draft instead. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to start the draft. We're going to see. So Sven goes first, Blabber second, Perks, Jensen, Licorice, Power of Evil. So we got 3 mid laners gone. If I look at the mid laners now, I know I said prioritize mid laners, but if I look at who's left, those top 3 mid laners have already gone. And so I'm probably going to actually just hold on to mid laners because maybe the person behind me picks them, but the difference now is between them is going to be negligible. I'm not getting those top tier picks. So I think I'm going to go for a bot laner instead and go for top tier bot laner and take Tactical. So if you can't get those top picks, then it's worth waiting. Like right here, I'm just going to kind of sack my mid lane because all the top 4 mid laners are gone. So I can actually wait for mid lane until the next round because the chances that all of the mid laners are gone is very low. So I would probably not go mid lane. I'd probably go to top lane in this case. Most of the top laners are still available. I can get a top tier pick. Maybe I'd take Someday in this case. So they go through. So you can see this guy doesn't have a mid laner. This guy doesn't have a mid laner here. and this guy doesn't have a mid laner here. And so in this case, my strategy has actually paid off. I have the exact same picks to look at here, but I got to pick Someday instead of taking a second tier mid laner. Yeah, so again, I probably wouldn't even pick my mid here. I think I would go jungle just because most people don't have their jungles picked. Well, there's 4 junglers gone. So you can see here at the bottom also, if I pick Xerxes and he hasn't made it over because of his visa issues, Potluck will automatically get subbed in. So you don't have to worry about like picking Finn and then it not being a good pick. Yeah, so I already have my top laner, I have my bot laner. Maybe it is best to go mid. I think I'd take Spica. TSM players are going to be highly valued. So rotates back through. 2 more mid laners are gone. So now I can see that every single person has a mid laner. So I can just leave my mid lane for last pick, which means I'm picking a support here. And yeah, I think I'd go with Huhi here. Sword Art would also be really strong, but I think I'm going to go with Huhi. See, supports are all getting picked in the last round there, and now I'm stuck with mid laner, but I basically had these options 3 rounds ago, so it wasn't worth wasting a pick on Someday or Spica. Like I would have to give up those higher tier top lanes or jungles if I wanted to pick Pobelter in the second round. But like Pobelter's not a second round pick. That would be my 4th tip: is don't feel the pressure of a pinched role. Take the loss and pressure someone else in another role. So I'd take Pobelter here for sure. Pobelter, my man. That Syndra play from last season revived CLG's season so that they could not make playoffs again. So that's the draft here. I'll be doing a full draft walkthrough with my friends later on today, but I would say I'll bring up those tips again just so you can see them. So teams matter. Pick those TLC 9, 100 Thieves TSM players whenever you can. Prioritize AD carries in mid, but keep in mind if a pool is getting pinched, it might be worth waiting till a later round anyways. And then big champ pools are important as well. And I didn't really think about that as much going through because I was trying to speed through it. But those are the basic tips for drafting. Hopefully those are helpful and that you get to dominate your friends in your fantasy league and you get your free skin because of it. So don't forget to subscribe because I'll have a few more videos coming out. Each week I'm going to put out a video on which players you should maybe pick up or let go or not play, and definitely what the meta looks like for picks and bans. So hit the subscribe button and drop a like. That would be awesome. So signing out for now.